Bhagavad-Gita was spoken by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, and then to the Bhagavad-Gita. So next day is was 14 years ago, our Guru Chaitanya and his holy entity, Maharishis, he left this world. Here in the holy Dham of Sri Vrindavan, where we're all sitting in the wonderful temple of Sri Krishna Balaram, built by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Yoga Swami Srila Prabhupada. So it was very, very auspicious. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, those of us who stay here in Vrindavan, we're very lucky in our hearts. We have a little jewel box with so many dollars. But the look at money, the crown jewel of all those dollars is Bhagavad Chaitanya. So we're all gathered here in this most auspicious city, in this most auspicious place, to glorify His grace, Bhagavad Chaitanya. So, to begin, first of all, we want to thank Swami Thakur for a very wonderful rendition of Yadi Pramadana, the song that Prabhupada always used to sing on the disappearance days of the Vaishnava chariots. Very, very heartfelt, warm rendition. So we thank you very much. And next we'd like to ask His Grace, Mukundadasa Prabhu, to please share his memories of the Bhagavad-Gita.
Gurve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. His Grace Guru Chaitanya Prabhu ki. So, it's our good fortune to be here in Sri Vrindavan Dham. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, the embodiment of the mercy of Sisi Gaunitai Krishna and Sisi Radha Shyamasundar. And so today we assembled to say a few words about His Grace Vivu Chaitanya Prabhu. I first time came to Sri Vrindavan Dham, 1980. And so very quickly I came to know about the different devotees, and one of them, of course, so the senior devotees, and one of them was Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. And so at the beginning, so we were serving in the temple by cleaning the temple. All the bhaktas, they were doing the seva at that time, everything practically, so cleaning the temple also. And then there was one devotee cleaning the deity's plates, the bhog, thali, so which is offered to the Lord, and then after it has been offered, it is transferred, and then we get the Mahaprasad. And then one devotee has to clean. So the devotee was doing, he broke his arm, so then they asked me to do, so I had the good fortune of doing that seva for maybe 2 months. And so at that time I came to know Vibhu Chaitanya very nicely. And I saw how he was completely dedicated in cooking for the Lord in a very wonderful way. Everything was always very clean and everything was in order, and he was always ready on time for the offering. And so he was fully in control of the kitchen, and practically he was doing all the seva, all the cooking. Of course, he had 1 or 2 assistants helping him also, cutting the vegetables and of course cleaning the pots. Devotees were there, but otherwise the cooking, practically he was doing everything, all the offerings, and making all the sweets also. So now we have at least 3 devotees who are cooking the different offerings during the day, and at least 1 devotee to make the sweets separately. So at least 4 or 5 devotees are engaged, what he was doing alone. And whatever he was cooking, it was then offered to the Lord, and then it becomes Adar Amrit, the nectar which has touched Krishna's lips. Of course, we also call Mahaprasad. Different devotees may be cooking, but if a pure devotee is cooking, so there is a difference there. It is all, if it is offered to the Lord, it is Mahaprasad, but if an advanced devotee is cooking, then it becomes even more potent because of the pure love, the consciousness which is there, pure consciousness. So the prasadam was always extremely wonderful, and all the preparations, I like sweet, so I very much liked his halva which he was making, and there was a burfi which he was doing. So with koa and sugar, and it was becoming very famous, and the devotees were always looking forward to get that burfi, and if they were going somewhere, then they were taking the burfi to their home and then to distribute. At that time also, of course, I had heard about him already from other devotees, how he was, since Prabhupada's time he was cooking, and even one time he was not able to finish his rounds, and then at that time he told Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had told him, you just chant as much as you can on the beads, but while you're cooking you chant. So which usually the spiritual master, he will make sure that everyone is chanting 16 rounds, at least 16 rounds. So but then at certain point when he was very busy, he was not able to chant, but then he was, while doing the seva, he was chanting the Maha Mantra very sweetly. He was chanting very nicely. And so that was very impressive. And he was very, very kind. He was always making sure that everyone was getting prasad. Of course now, for example, when the Mahaprasad is coming out, there's one, Anantaliyar Mataji, and all the devotees are there taking care of prasadam, something is sold and something is distributed. And Prabhupada also wanted that it is sold at the Mahaprasadam stall, the Mahaprasad. But he was making sure that all who were helping, they were getting some prasad. So he was in control of that also when it was coming out. He was taking little prasad and then he was giving to those who were helping him and those who were doing seva, cleaning and in the transfer room. And he also kept some Mahaprasad for the senior devotees, and he was calling many times some devotees here. There's some prasadam. So in this way the opportunity was there for me for 2 months to see how he was very nicely doing his seva and taking care of everything, first class. And then I was on Sankirtan in different places in UP, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, but every 2-3 months we used to go back to here. We used to come back to Vrindavan, and then I was always able to see Vibhu Chaitanya, and we were all eager to get some Mahaprasad, which he was giving also to the devotees who came back from Sankirtan. And then after that, so for 3 years I was here, then my health was not so good. I left for Europe and America for a few years, but then I came back, and then there was a need of some pujari to help with dressing the deities, and so again I had the opportunity to serve and to be in his association. And then 92, there was a need of a new head pujari, and they asked me. And actually at that time, so there was some difficulty, and a few times actually he had to experience some difficulty also in his seva. And for example, on Ekadashi, but he was always trying his best and adjusting. But at one point, besides cooking for the deities, everything on Ekadashi, so he was thinking, we should have some Ekadashi prasad for Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu and Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta. So then he was cooking, besides everything, the grains, he was cooking and keeping everything separate. He was cooking Ekadashi prasad for Gonitai, and for then Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, because on Ekadashi we are not taking any grains. And he was doing that, I believe maybe almost 1 year. But then some devotees, they were saying, no, there's no need, but still he was continuing. And so I think it was 1991. I was the time pujari just before I became head pujari. And then one of the senior members at that time, actually the temple president at that time also, and some other GBCs, they had come and they had heard that, and they were saying there's no need of that. And then the temple president came. I was there in the kitchen and told Vibhu Chaitanya on Ekadashi, there's no need to cook anything extra. And then he had to stop, but I saw his facial expression, and he was very much sad that he was not able to cook Ekadashi preparations for Gonita and then for Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada. But he accepted the authorities, and he continued with his normal cooking. And so at that time, the head pujari Purnachand Prabhu, so sometimes he had some different of opinion, but basically he was also very respectful towards Vibhu Chaitanya, and he used to come in the kitchen and offer pranam to Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. But at a certain point again there was a difficulty, and then he decided not to cook anymore. That was in 1991. And then, but then for some time he was not doing any seva, but after a little while, and at that time, then they asked me to become head pujari, and in 92, begin 92, and after a little while also, actually those devotees who were distributing Chanamrit, at that time there were 2 devotees, and one of them actually, he was quite old, he was then taken actually by his family members back to his town. And they were feeling that he should just stay with us, and then we needed somebody to distribute the Chanamrit. So then at that time, actually Vibhu Chaitanya himself, he came forward and he started distributing Chanamrit very nicely. And he was doing in the morning, evening time, there was somebody else. But then that other person was also elder, then he also left. And then he was doing the whole day, the seva of distributing Mahaprasad. So practically for 15, 16 years, he was taking care since Prabhupada's time. 75 after deities were installed. So actually Prabhupada had asked him to cook. I even heard that Mataji, I think, and Devi Mataji can confirm, but I heard when he first came, even he was asked, even before he was initiated, to cook, because he was a Bengali and he was a good cook. And then he got initiation first and second, of course, very quickly. And then he was the main cook for like 16 years, 15 years, 16 years, cooking every day, very wonderfully. And after that, when he stopped, and then he was doing the Chanamrit Seva, and that, so from 92, he started doing the Chanamrit Seva, and then he was doing the whole day. And again, very, very wonderful he was doing, keeping the place very clean, and very lovingly giving Chanamrit, holding the hand of the devotees, especially the children or the old people. He was holding the hand, so they were not dropping any Chanamrit on the floor, because Chanamrit is very, very sacred. The water which has washed the Lord's body touched his lotus feet. And even what he was doing, he was getting small cups, because sometimes devotees, they want a little more than just 1 spoon, especially the children. Then he was giving in a small cup for the children, they could drink like this. And then even the big people, then they also wanted full cup from him. They were taking, he had smaller cup and bigger cups. Jai Sisi Gunita, Sisi Krishna, Sisi Radha, Shama Sundar. So he was doing the seva very nicely and organized, and then as he was getting older, he had one devotee to help him also to bring the Chanamrit inside, and then he was putting in the fridge, and everything was very nicely done, cleaning the place, the table, the floor, always. At one point he was thinking that it's too much a hassle to always go back in the pujari room and put in the fridge and then bring it back here, and he was asking me for, why can we put the fridge there where Tulsi Devi is? I was a little hesitant, but because it's such a wonderful devotee and senior Prabhupada disciple, I said, okay. And then he put the fridge there, and then he was keeping the Chanamrit there and some prasad also, and then giving to the devotees. But after a few days, some devotees, they were complaining, why the fridge is there? They were complaining to me. I said, well, Vibhu Chaitanya is keeping the Chanamrit, and then they were saying, no, it should not be there. But then I was standing, well, he's old now and it's difficult for him, and I don't think so it's a big deal. I didn't have such a big problem. But then again, after a few days, some other devotees complaining, and then finally the temple president told me that this fridge has to go away from there. And then, so it has to go there. But he was, of course, always humble, and and accepting the authority, although sometimes so a little hesitantly he was then continuing. So so that he was doing at least 10 years or maybe 12 years. And after that he was not able to do, his body was not well and it was difficult for him. And then he always stayed in the brahmacharya ashram on the top floor towards the back, and it was difficult for him to come every day up and down. But he was still trying. But eventually then the devotees suggested to him to stay in the guest house. So in the beginning he was not very enthusiastic. He wanted to stay with the brahmacharis, but finally he agreed. And then he used to come, but at a certain point he was not able to do the Chanamrit Seva. And even it was difficult for him to come to the temple. So then he made his his room a kind of temple. And he had from our calendar, the yearly calendar, he was taking the pictures, and he had a picture of Gonitai, Krishna Balaram, and Radheshyam, and of course Prabhupada's picture also. And every day he was asking us, he was asking me to arrange that in the evening you could get the Mahaprasad garland of the deities, at least some. And then he was putting that on his altar and decorating again Gonitai, Krishna Balaram, Radheshyam there. And in this way he was continuing with serving so the deities in the form of the pictures, and usually he was not accepting any seva from anybody. Very difficult to serve him or even to spend much time with him. He was quite reserved and speaking not so much, but lovingly always exchange was there. But to serve him was difficult. But then there was, because he was getting old, and we had one pujari who was first helping him in the kitchen, and Rup Sanatan, and then he allowed him to clean his cloth and then to clean the floor. But otherwise difficult to serve him. But then, so even I always ask him, you need something, and sometimes very rarely he asks me for something. But usually, no, everything is fine. But one time, so he used to call me regularly. He used to ask Rup Sanatan to call me, and he used to come, and then one point he told me, I need 300 rupees every month. 300 rupees every month? I said, immediately of course I said, okay, no problem. And then 300 rupees every month I was giving him. I was wondering what for he needs 300 rupees. What he was doing actually, he was buying some boga, and then he's buying some small leaf cups he was getting from here, but then some little cups also. Or then he was offering to his altar to the deities in his room, and then he was calling the devotees to his room, and he was distributing prasadam. So you see the nature of the devotee is not thinking about himself. He's serving the Lord, but then he's also serving all the Vaishnavas, all the devotees. So even though he was not able to move, but then he called the devotees to his room, and he was giving whatever he was offering. He was then distributing that to the devotees also. So such a sweet and wonderful devotee. Of course, so many other things are there, but there are many devotees, so I will stop here. His Grace Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna.
So we'd like to thank His Grace Vrindavan Prabhu for some very sweet memories of Vibhu Chaitanya and his wonderful service to cooking. So with the permission of the Vaishnavas, I'll also speak something. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So you can see the picture that we have here on the Vyasasan. You can see personally the way he set up his room, as Mukunda Datta was explaining. So Vibhu Chaitanya was a very interesting, very special devotee. Because ordinarily those who are special devotees, they're known all over the world, they're traveling here and there and preaching. He wasn't known so much for his preaching, but he was a very great preacher. Those people who associated with him, he would preach to them very much. But he was just in the kitchen here, serving Krishna and Balaram all day long. It was most amazing. He would get up, I guess around 2:30, take his bath, he would come, start cooking, and he wouldn't leave until after, 1 o'clock. He'd go up to his room in the Gurukul, and he always fed the birds. He always brought some Mahaprasad for the birds. You would see him there, remember there's one bird with only one leg, he was always sure to make sure that he got some Mahaprasad. Then again, 4 o'clock, back down here cooking and cooking. Then well after 10 o'clock he would go back. It was just totally astounding. But most devotees never knew him, because all the big devotees we know, they're all traveling around the world, they're getting their picture and back to Godhead and Facebook and so many things. But he was just back there cooking, and the most amazing, as Mukunda Datta explained, Prabhupada told him, you just chant. He complained he couldn't finish his round. He said, you don't have to chant rounds, you just chant while you cook. And if you ever walk by the kitchen, you used to hear the most sweet melodies. He would sit there cooking and singing the most sweet melodies of Hare Krishna. Only devotee that Prabhupada, everybody else, Prabhupada was to the very end, very strict, 16 rounds. But he just said, you just cook and chant. And of course, Mukunda Datta was favorite of the burfi, but I thought the samosas and the kachuris that Vibhu Chaitanya made, they were from Goloka Vrindavan. Sometimes myself, Pundarik, and some other devotees, we would go traveling here and there. Two things we would dream about coming back to Vrindavan was to get samosa from Vibhu Chaitanya and Bihari Lal's Nimbu Pani. So, and he was always there every day at Samadhi Artik. Even though in his older age, you see him walking, like this. He was bent over. He could hardly walk straight. He was completely bent over. But he would come and he would go in the kitchen. It's still bent. He was just amazing. And you knew, especially I remember when I was temple president, if Vibhu Chaitanya came in with the Mahaprasad from the deities, you knew that Srimati Radharani had blessed you that day. And eventually he became so old and bent over, he couldn't cook anymore. That was very sad. And for a while, when he stopped cooking, he would sit there by this door here, Radha Shyam Sundar's door. He'd sit outside on the molding there and just sit there until finally he got that service of the Charnamrit. And as Mukunda Datta mentioned, when you came to get Charnamrit, he would take your hand so gently, and just this transcendental rush of energy would go. He would take your hand so firmly, but so gently. And he would give the Charnamrit like that. He was doing that for so long. And then our Dandara Swami's not here to tell the story how, because I'm told he was sitting out here on the molding there. So one time Dandara Swami came in the door, and he looked at him and he said, 6. And Maharaj said, what? He said, 6. He said, what? Then he understood that what he was doing alone, it took 6 people to do. He was so amazing devotee, we can't imagine, It took 6 people to do what he was doing. And And he was always so kind, and even when he couldn't do the Charnamrita anymore, and you can see here the picture he had. His room was just Krishna Balaram, Radha Shamsundar and Gaurnitai all over the place, everywhere, and Tulsi Devi was there, and every once in a while he'd come over and get me to come and take prasad, as Mukunda Datta mentioned. He was just an amazing devotee. The outside devotees, not many. Those who were very special Vrindavan devotees from outside, they knew Vibhu Chaitanya, but most of the devotees, they didn't know him. He was just a quiet servant of Krishna Balaram and Prabhupada. He was very devoted to Prabhupada, and he did his service so steadily, we can't even imagine. As Mukunda does it now, it takes 4 or 5 devotees to do what he was doing alone. Everything, this Mangalarti sweets, everything was made by him. So there's a lot of devotees to speak, so I'll put my voice to rest here. Okay, we have one offering from Mahadevi Mataji. I don't have my glasses on. Oh, maybe you better read it. Everything is looking blurry. So we have an offering from Mahadevi. Sri Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki. After that, then we'll ask His Holiness Prabodhananda. Huh? All right, Radharaman Swami will speak after we read the offering of Mahadevi Mataji.
Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki jai. Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu is a 100% Prabhupada man and completely dedicated and devoted to serving in Krishna Balaram temple, specifically Pujari department. For many years, he was in the Pujari department. Prabhupada told him, "No need to leave Krishna Balaram's campus. Everything is here." For 30 plus years, Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu never left. He served daily and faithfully in Krishna Balaram's kitchen. We all know the hardships he endured back then, not at all like it is today. Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu was doing the work of 5 men by himself, cooking and preparing our Lord's preparations on cow dung, wood fires, carrying the bucket of water, doing most of the cutting and everything required for 6 daily offerings. Most likely, his cooking is known in Goloka, where he must be making kachoris for Prabhupada now. His sweets were sublime, especially his sandesh. Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu relished giving prasad to his godbrothers. His kachoris were out of this world. In fact, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj tells the story of how Srila Prabhupada wasn't eating, only taking buttermilk for many days. Suddenly, Prabhupada smelled kachoris. We know that Prabhupada is affectionately known as Kachori Mukhi. Prabhupada said to His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, "Get me kachori." Bhakti Charu Maharaj said, "Oh no, Prabhupada, you have been fasting. Such food would be not good." Srila Prabhupada said again, "Get me kachori." The smell of the kachori was like a divine incense in the air. With trembling hands, Bhakti Charu Maharaj went downstairs and he goes to the kitchen where Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu was making kachoris for the Lord's offering. With anxiety in his voice, Bhakti Charu Maharaj said to Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, "Prabhupada wants kachori." Without hesitation or questioning, Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu put the kachori from the Lord's plate on the silver plate for Sri Prabhupada. But His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj tells this pastime. He says Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu was smiling but said nothing. Then we know how much Prabhupada relished those kachoris and told his disciples, "Don't ever tell your spiritual master what to do." During the 80s, I was managing and teaching in a girls' school next door to Bhakti Siddhanta studio on Parikrama Path. Daughters of our Devi Shakti, Bhujan, Dinabandhu, Lola Devi, and maybe 4 others would do academies in morning and parikramas, cultural activities in the afternoon. We would go over daily for Rajbhagati and line up to receive Charanamrita from the soft, wrinkly, lotus-like hands of Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, who was very old by then. It was an amazing sight to see. Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu was so very carefully putting a few drops in each girl's palm and having some affectionate exchange like a playful grandfather. He would make sure they honored the Charanamrita very carefully. All the girls, even today, have very fond memories of these exchanges with Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. They would stand in awe watching Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu offer his full daily dandavats to Prabhupada in front of the Vyasasana with great reverence. We would all observe how he would say many prayers and he stretched out in dandavat. Few times we thought he needed help, but although his body was bent over with severe osteoporosis, he moved around with purpose and serenity on his face. Just seeing Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu was a great source of inspiration, pure Vaishnava. Also, in the 80s, all the men pujaris got sick for 2 nights. So many of us women who were here then were asked to put mind dress on Krishna Balaram and other lords. I got to dress Krishna. Nartaka, Gopal, Devi dressed Balaram, and other Vaishnavis dressed the other lords. There are photos of this historic event. When Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu was asked about this, we heard Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu said, "We do the needful, let them do. We do the needful, let them do so, God can be served." I pray for a few drops of pure dedication and devotion like what we witnessed in our Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
So we'd like to thank Mahadevi and Mataji for some very wonderful memories of Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. And next we want to request His Holiness Radharani Swami Maharaj to please give us his memories of Vibhu Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasyat Deshtarine. Hare Krishna. Today we are celebrating disappearance of Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. So, in Krishna Balaram Mandir, he was like Navratna, a very famous, they used to king, previous king, they keep in their courtyard important persons. They are called Navratna. Likewise, the Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu was one of the Navratna of this temple, Krishna Balaram temple. When I came in touch with Krishna Balaram temple, I started to came. Since the very beginning, we know him, and that time he was staying in the Brahmachari Ashram, Gurukul building, and we have also fortune that time staying in the same building. Still we are staying. So we felt he was elderly, so he was in Brahmachari Ashram like our guardian, our father who was taking care of. And especially whenever he was cooking here in the kitchen, Krishna Balaram, Srimati Radha Gaur Nitai, Radha Shyam Sundar kitchen. And whenever he was coming in the ashram, he was bringing some prasadam and very affectionately he was giving prasadam to us. And that time we feel that someone is there with us, someone blessing we have personally, so that we can also develop Krishna consciousness. Especially when he was distributing Charanamrita here, this place, sitting. So he was distributing very affectionately to everyone. But I personally feel, of course, he was giving for everybody. But whenever he saw us that we are coming to take Charanamrit, then beside the spoon, small spoon, he has very tiny one cup. So he filled up that cup and while handing over, giving the Charanamrit with his left hand, left palm, he supported our palm and then very gently, very nicely, at that time, I also felt that certainly I will also develop attraction for Krishna because there is blessing of such a highly elevated personality, Vibhu Chaitanya, his blessing is there. So when we are giving Charanamrit, we feel that he is giving us blessings also. And prasadam always, he was cooking. I have fortune, couple of times also when he was cooking. I don't remember any incident, but I seen him that he was cooking very, very affectionately, very nicely, with love and devotion. At that time, of course, every day he was cooking, but never ever I saw he was doing arti. Never he did, and arti was never. I don't remember any. Though he was very next to Radha Shyam Sundar, just behind altar, but never ever I saw him doing arti. That was his humility, such a humble position. So he spent his whole life, his life was in service, life of service, always seva, Krishna Balanam, Radha Shyam Sundar, Gaur Nitai, Srila Prabhupada, cooking. So he is one of the Navaratna of this Krishna Balanam temple, very important personality, very Krishna conscious personality. When we were any contact with him, we are feeling that Krishna consciousness, a spontaneous attraction for Krishna was emanating from his being. It was clearly we feel that his emanating Krishna consciousness was coming out from his existence. So Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, one of the most important and Krishna conscious person in this temple, who had developed spontaneous attraction for Srimati Radharani. So at this day we remember, and same times we are seeking his blessings also, so that we can also develop some attraction for service of Srimati Radharani. Hare Krishna.
Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki. So we'd like to thank His Holiness Radharani Maharaj for some wonderful memories. It's amazing how everybody remembers the Charanamrit pastime so sweetly. So next I'd like to request His Holiness Prabodhanand Saraswati Maharaj to please give his memories of Vibhu Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna. So today is His Grace Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu Nitya Lila Pravishta Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu की आज तिरुभाव तिथि है और जो वो उनकी तिरुभाव महोत्सव में हम यहाँ ज्वाइन करने के लिए थे ना, मैराथन में थे उस समय लगभग देहरादून के आगे वो के छोटा सिटी है नहन, तो ये उस सिटी में हम थे और वैष्णव महाराज फ़ोन किए कि विभु चैतन्य प्रभु मैंने अभी नित्य में प्रवेश कर गए। तो हम सभी भक्त फिर बस में बहुत उस दिन शोक दिवस मनाए थे। तो उस साल हम ठीक मैराथन जाने के पहले कार्तिक के बाद उस समय हिज होलीनेस रोमपाद स्वामी आए थे, पधारे थे। वो उस स्टेप से चल रहे थे वो, लेकिन वो उस समय नीचे आ गए थे। उस स्टेप में ब्रह्मचर्य आश्रम के उस स्टेप में चढ़ के ऊपर जा रहे थे, मैं आ रहा था, नीचे उतर रहा था। पूछे आप विभु चैतन्य प्रभु को जानते हो? वो रूम बताऊँ उनका रूम जानते हो कि नहीं? तो वो तो भी नीचे चले गए। बोले नहीं नहीं वो पीछे नहीं वो नीचे हैं। तो बोले आप मुझे वहाँ रूम तक पहुँचा सकते, बता सकते कौन सा रूम है? फिर मैं उनके साथ आया और वो उससे पीछे वो गेस्ट हाउस के पीछे 5 नंबर रूम, तो वहाँ तक गए। लेकिन रास्ते में जब आ रहे थे बोले कि आप एक्चुअली आप लोग बहुत फॉर्चुनेट, यू आर वेरी फॉर्चुनेट हियर बिकॉज यू हैव ए प्योर डिवोटी like Vibhu Chaitanya. He was maybe doing very little seva, but he is a pure devotee. Then he went, I saw how affectionate and love. I told Vibhu Chaitanya, inside went to room and Maharaj was standing before. I informed that His Holiness Rompada Swami came to see you. Then he immediately became so enthusiastic. He was so sick. His assistant, his servant was telling him, no, he is sick. He can. But when he got up, immediately he got Maharaj. I took Maharaj, asked him to come inside. Then just embracing him. So it is so affectionate, and gave him a little Mahaprasad. Then Maharaj, I said that is the last darshan. I told them that I went, that I left for marathon. Then I heard from also many devotees like Tamalkrishna Goswami Maharaj. One time he was giving Bhagavatam class. He also mentioned this Vibhu Chaitanya was definitely a pure devotee. So it's very difficult to people to recognize someone when he was and he is still living in this planet. But I saw when he was living and he was serving, doing a menial service, just cooking for deities, but still many exalted devotees, they recognized him that he is a pure devotee. And he is cooking, and he was staying in 73 room, and at that time, first when I came a devotee here, then Chaitanya Deva, one South American devotee, was his bhakti, looking after BBT Bhakti director. So anyhow, so fortunately I was not with new bhaktas. He asked me to stay with him. I was staying with him. Same room he was staying. And next room was 72 we were staying, and 73 was Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. So 73 Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. Then Hetu Das, that time he was something doing in deity department. So he introduced me. He took, I am taking you to a pure devotee. You must get blessings, because he know that I am from Odisha. When he come to know, and I went to Vibhu Chaitanya. She took me to Vibhu Chaitanya's room. I pay him obeisance, and then he told, then he gave Mahaprasad. So anyhow, so then that day I took prasad. They told me, you take prasad here today. It's the first day. Then I took this Mahaprasad. Hetudas took many Mahaprasad. To sit down here, take prasad. So I take so nice prasad, basmati chawal, paneer sabji, and it's so, I never eat such prasad with such affection, because it's serving me so affectionately. Actually, in my family, I have lack of this, because my parents, both my father and mother, they died in one day when I was small. So, they are so affectionate. I told I never get this affection in our family or anywhere. There are other places. She said, yeah, eat more, eat more. Eat. So, then, anyhow, then every day, like continuously 8-10 days, I got Mahaprasad, eat there. So I was supposed to go, that time I was coming from to Rishikesh to somehow to here in from Divine Life Society. So they told, I was supposed to return back. Well, I getting so nice Mahaprasad and so nice affection, talking so sweetly. And this our Bhakti director, he told, for 1 week you have not to do any service. He gave me so many books. Just read these books. Go on reading. So I was reading. Then so when I was thinking to go return, then but he told, no, don't go. Stay here. It is Mahaprasad. I told, okay, I will bring my luggage. So this Chaitanya Dev told, what is luggage? We give him a cloth and whatever you need. And books, I told my books are all, because they are all Gita Press books and some other books. They told, no need to go there. Books, whatever you need, we give here. Then they gave me first service in temple bookstore. Then I stay here because nice prasad and affection. So in this way, we simply eating the Mahaprasad from the hand of Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu and his affection and love, so I become a devotee. And so I am also still continuing. So, Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki.
So the Saraswati Maharaj, some wonderful memories of Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. Next we'd like to ask His Grace Nandanandan Prabhu to please give us some memories of Vibhu Chaitanya.
Now let us my respectful obeisances, all Vaishnava devotee of Lord, who can fulfill all desire. Everyone just like desired tree, full of compassion, fallen condition soul. Vancha kalpatarvasya kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanang pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namo. I remember Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. I first time coming here, Dinabandhu Prabhu President. So I do here 1 year, 24 hours Kirtan. And I first day do Kirtan after Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu bringing Mahaprasad. And Bengali, Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu and me all talking. I coming Gaudiya Math. I told Prabhu ji, why coming 24 Pargana? Prabhu, Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu body all 24 Pargana, they are Dighir part. There I also, before I Brahmachari, there I going fishing, there are few devotees, Gaudiya Math. And relationship Prabhu, Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. And my wife do service, Daiva Shakti Mataji give, this Prabhupada house do seva. So my wife pregnant, first baby, my Vishaka, now 34 years. 34 years. I hear Vrindavan temple 34 years. So every time Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu told, what happened? One day he took vomit. So what happened? So I told, they are pregnant my wife. And every time give nice Mahaprasad. And so much blast, give
Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, my fourth daughter eating so much Mahaprasad. This is why my all daughter now still devotee of Mahaprasad. After 1 year after Dinabandhu Prabhu, that time how much family maintained? 250 rupees. Everybody. So Ayendra Prabhu not give. Sarvabhauma give some money, 250 rupees. And Dinabandhu Prabhu one day big feast, Purnachat Prabhu, the upstairs, all GBC. Feast making my wife and me together. And one kitchen, there everybody satisfied, very nice prasadam. And next day, my few days after, one kitchen in charge, Balaji Prabhu going marketing. And some their problem, supply man, and his bicycle they are throw and is left. And Dinabandhu Prabhu say, who is now kitchen in charge? So say, Nandan Prabhu and Purnachat Prabhu decide that you are to serve kitchen. And Dinabandhu Prabhu in mercy, first month he give 500 rupees, 250 rupees more. And Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, may one time I talking, everybody they are discussed, oh, Vibhu Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not talk, chanting. I one day asked, Prabhuji, you not chanting? So Vibhu Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one shlok speak me. Ataeb Sri Krishna namadi na bhaved grajya indriya. Sevan mukhi hi jibbada swayam eva spurattad. All time, many time, I going Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, sometimes cooking, I going my wife. That time kitchen going woman, now not going woman. That time ulam, one Premnidhi wife, my wife, sometimes help cutting sabji, sometimes cooking. So Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu going kitchen, one tune Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu singing. Which tune? Hare Krishna, all time this tune. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All time, I see any time going kitchen inside, Vibhu Chaitanya Mahaprabhu singing. This is a Ataeb Sri Krishna Namadi na Babes Gradha Indriya. Our Indriya sense, never this chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The Sevan Mukhi is Jibbada. He's all time chanting and do seva. Cleaning pot, cooking, everything. And I see Vibhu Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's quality, Vaishnava quality, Srimad Bhagavad writing. They are asked Devoti Mata Kapil Dev, Tithikava Karanaika Surida Sarvadainam Ajato Shatruva Shanta Sadhava Sadhu Bhushanam. The devotee is all outside dress. Tithikava, that inside is a Karanoika. Every time he says, cry, how my wife here give baby, no my relative. And all time Kavi, know your father, know your mother, know your wife, mother. Well, no, I have so many father, mother. So many, they are Bangali Sarvabhauma wife, going hospital, see my wife, Daiva Shakti Mataji, so much help my family. You don't understand Daiva Shakti Mataji. I stay now, Krishna Balaram temple, long time, so he's in Marcel Daiva Shakti Mataji. One Mataji Imlitola, Shova Mataji, so Mataji bringing for Daiva Shakti Mataji, me. And Daiva Shakti Mataji, Draupad Prabhu. And Draupad Prabhu say, oh, stay Gosala, you do some seva here. And Ayendra Prabhu give 24 hours kirtan, 1 year. After I kitchen in charge, and 93 going Kumbh Mela, 1 month, Bibi Govinda Swami. And after coming back, that time president is Kadamba Kanon Maharaj. They, oh, so many people kitchen, you do serve the Gosala. So 93 I Gosala in charge, and Gosala in charge after so much relationship Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. What happened? Now some relationship, milk. Anytime, every day 90 liter milk. Anytime 5 liter give less, so much angry. Why you give less, Krishna Balaram? This Gosala for Krishna Balaram. No another person. But there are so many Girastha devotee. You know, every devotee 2 liter, 2 liter. This cow is sometimes 5 liter less, sometimes 10 liter more give. So one day give 5 liter less, so much angry Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. After say, no problem, no, I told Prabhuji, a problem. The guest house take, Gurukul take, they are every day morning time 250 liter milk. I divided every guest house, restaurant, Gurukul. So sometime deity is less coming. Why? Now another devotee not give, it's a devotee angry, Punnachat Prabhu, another, so many devotee there, Sarvana Prabhu, 2 liter no give, to fighting with me. So there I give less deity. And Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, every day I coming Guru Puja, sometime I Mangalarati coming, so sometime not coming, so he give prasadam, my boil ala. Just boil Carmen, this one give Nandanandan family. Nice sweet, nice prasad. So much prasad I eating, give Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu my family. This is I remember. But Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu going back to Godhead, sorry, that time I not here. One day my wife, I call every morning, here evening, 4 o'clock at their night, America, I call and my wife so much cry. What happened? Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu now going back to Godhead. I so sad. I know see last time. But I no do any seva. Sikh Prabhuji, that time I no do seva. Before I go to seva, sometime I give my wife cooking some nice sukta. Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu like sukta. But my house, everybody going to take prasadam, so many varieties item. But Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu say, I'm only bringing sukta. Corolla, that inside, sukta inside are kela, green banana. This is pure like, and no, the sukta making this side one parasis, his name Bengali. Okay? You know, Bengali sukta inside give some one prices. This is a Bengali food of all time. Randhani. You know, sukta inside, no Randhani give no sukta. The Randhani, and so much like, so I buy Randhani. Sometime here also I give buy Randhani deity and Prabhuji making sukta and offering Krishna Balaram. So today I pray, Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, you are nice devotee, but Prabhuji I see खूब quiet. He's never talking so much, only few word talking. And also I here sit down 1 year after my kirtan time, 1 year hot time is 4 to 8:30. And 8:30 my wife, their Prabhupada room is closed, and my wife has sit down. And I do kirtan. Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu said, you have less do kirtan, you take your wife your house. I told, no, I do kirtan. Mahendra Prabhu said, oh, your wife here, you quickly going back to Gosala. You gone. I do half hour kirtan. Sometimes Mahendra Prabhu take their kirtan. So, and this Prabhuji is so much in mercy, my family. But another, my daughter born, big name, give Bisha ka name, Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. And next, Lolita born, he said, this is another name give you. Okay, why? No, you give Lolita. This Lolita Vishaka, do you two daughter. And Subhadra give my daughter name. They are Bibi Govindaswamy, and Manini give Bibi Govindaswamy, 2 daughter name. But Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, so much mercy, as so much mercy, but Dinabandhu Prabhu, Deva Shakti Mataji here. My wife one time told this, my wife time was here I stay for Deva Shakti Mataji. Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
So we like to thank His Grace Nandananda Prabhu for some very sweet memories of Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. Next we'd like to ask His Grace Srinivas Acharya. I never knew this, but I just found out he stayed for 6 years in Vibhu Chaitanya's room. Vibhu Chaitanya invited him to come and stay in his room with him for 6 years.
नमने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरव पैशानी विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चादेश जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री आदित्य गदाधर शिवासदि गौरवक्तुंड हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम 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 हरे. I like to speak in Hindi प्रभु. So 1986 में जब मैं वृंदावन आया उस टाइम दीनबंधु was president here. Then I got service to book distribution here. Then after some time, head Pujari Purnachand Prabhu, he engaged me in DT kitchen to cutting sabji, cleaning pots, and helping Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. So that time I was new devotee. So one day I was cutting the potatoes. Then anyhow potatoes fell down from my hand, and again I took and tried to cut it, and he stopped me. Then I said, okay Prabhuji, I asked it, why you is stopping to cut this potato? Then he said, you cannot offer this potato because it fell down in the ground. तो कुछ दिन बाद विभु चैतन्य प्रभु ने मुझे बोला कि आप मेरे रूम पे आ जाओ, यू कम टू माई रूम नंबर 73. I was staying in room number 72 next to him. So he said, you come to my room, and I went to his room. I was cleaning his room, then he stopped me. You don't clean, because he does not want any service from anybody. And one day I tried to wash his clothes. He stopped me because he does not want any service from anybody. And inside that DT kitchen, he was telling me, you don't have to go anywhere, just chant here and do seva. The whole day I was doing seva with him, cutting, cleaning pots, and everything. Means he was cooking and I was cutting, sopping, cleaning pots, everything. Only 2 persons was there, me or Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. Or no, any third person was there inside the kitchen. And he wake up early in the morning, like 2:30, and I don't know what time he wake up and what time he come to temple. That time I sleep that time. But he never disturb anyone. कभी डिस्टर्ब नहीं करता था. जब भी कमरे में धीरे धीरे काम करता था, लाइट भी बहुत, मतलब कुछ भी साउंड नहीं, ताकि किसी को डिस्टर्ब हो. और मंदिर आते थे और 1 बजे मंदिर से जाते थे सारा सेवा करके. और ओनली ही वाज कुकिंग, नोबडी हेल्पिंग हिम फॉर कुकिंग. This is the Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, and he is staying in room. Never he locked inside room. He never locked the room, and never used any soap. Only use mud, and never you go out from the Vrindavan. And I asked one day, Prabhuji, you are not chanting? Then he said, yeah, my Guru Maharaj told me, you don't have to chant. You just cook, means hate kam mukhe nam, means you work with hand and chant Hare Krishna. And whole day he was chanting inside the DT kitchen. This is a lot of memory.
That memory you said that.
Huh?
Found
Oh, one day what happened? I tried to take sweets from the DT kitchen. That time I was new devotee. That time I was not working in DT kitchen. So Vibhu Chaitanya was cooking like this, and from behind I going to take the sweets, offered sweets, not bhoga, it's prasadam. Then he's a Trinetra. I was thinking how he can saw me. I was going through backside and he chastised me. Oh, what are you doing? But he was cooking. I just slowly I was going. I was looking him. He was watching or not. But I thought this, how he understand I was going inside the take sweets. Then after that he used to give me everyday sweets. Okay, so now, one time I asked Vibhuchan, what is the devotional life? Then he chastised me. Then one day he told me, you have to change your heart. If you don't change your heart, you cannot do devotional service. He said like this. So okay, I want to finish right now. These people are waiting for come inside. Hare Krishna. Vibhuchan Prabhu ki jai.
We'd like to thank His Grace Srinivasacharya Prabhu for some wonderful memories of Srila Prabhupada. And next we'd like to request for Grace Devi Shakti blessing. Please come. We're all waiting to hear what she has to say about Bhagavad-Gita.
Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, I don't know the exact time he joined the temple, but before he joined the temple, Srila Prabhupada gave some very exact instructions how the deity worship should go on here, the cooking. And that was in 1975 when the temple opened. He saw that there were a lot of devotees just hanging around not doing service. He said there should only be 3 pujaris and 1 cook. And this is the way Prabhupada wanted this temple to be, that 1, 2, 3 pujaris and 1 cook. And the others should go out on Sankirtan. If they're here, they should do 24-hour kirtan. This is Prabhupada's. He wanted 25 Goswamis to be here, lifetime dedication, and this is the way he was training us. So March 1976, I had to go to Mayapur to set up book tables, and came back quickly in December, ran to my favorite place, Krishna Balaram's kitchen, to do service again, and there was a new devotee there. That was Vibhu Chaitanya. And he was all alone. So I spoke to him in whatever Bengali I knew. I said, I've come here to pick up my service again. I used to make the sweets. Do you mind if I serve here? He immediately took me in, let me started cooking, helping him. That was December 1976. And so as much as possible, I would go in to help Vibhu Chaitanya cook then. And I saw that he was doing everything. It was exactly the way Prabhupada wanted it, but I couldn't understand what type of superhuman personality this was, how one person could actually do everything. He would wake up, as Srinivas Prabhu said, maybe 2:30 in the morning, and we only had, in the whole temple, we had 1 gas burner, 2 stoves. That was for the deities. Everything else was being cooked on coal. We couldn't use wood in the kitchen. We did hard coal, koila. And that hard coal you have to break up and put the stoves outside, and then when they're hot, you bring them in. He did all of that all by himself. By 3 o'clock in the morning, he was outside breaking the coal, making the stoves, getting the stoves brought in, and then he would start the cooking. It was beyond, there was no way an ordinary human being could do everything that Vibhu Chaitanya was doing, and completely silently. Nobody even knew what he was doing, what it took to run the kitchen for their lordships. And in those days we had 10 plates. Not just, I think now there are only 6 plates. Prabhupada changed it. But we had for each of, Prabhupada had his own plate, Srila Bhakti-Siddhanta, everyone had their own plates. So he was cooking for 10 plates then, all by himself. Some of the boys would come in, they would maybe cut up the vegetables for him. He would have everything very systematically with the cooking. And everything, just like unbelievable. It had to be coming, all that energy had to be coming from the spiritual world, how he was able to make all the offerings, all by himself. If devotees came to help him, even they were not steady. Sometimes there would be one devotee assigned to wash the pots. And we know here in the wintertime it's very hard to wash the pots because of the ghee. So that devotee, he just wouldn't show up one day after the Raj Bhog. There was nobody to wash all the pots, and the cooking you had to wash the pots, and then evening time the cooking had to be done. So Bibhu Chaitanya himself would have to wash the pots. And then in the afternoon, all right, afternoon time is just cutting up the fruits. He would allow sometimes someone to cut up the fruits, but he would watch. And one boy, because, you know, if there's something wrong with the fruit, you cut it out, you don't want to offer that to the deities. But one boy, if one of the bananas was a little bad part, he would cut off half of the banana and stick it in a bag and save it. And he would hide it behind the refrigerator so that after the offering he would come and take all those remnants. And Bibhu Chaitanya found it behind the refrigerator. He knew every single detail of everything that was going on in that kitchen. He was that one cook that Prabhupada wanted. So, watching Bibhu Chaitanya from 76 up until his departure, just like we have the changing bodies. He was so strong when he came, maybe he was 55 when he came. It's in the prime of life. Cooking, and then as we heard from Mukunda Datta, reducing, until finally, gam, that's what it's called, when you're bent over. Yeah. Just like the changing bodies. And we watched every single transformation. But just like in the changing bodies, there's this little spark. So that spark of Bibhu Chaitanya, in every single sphere of his life, he just continued with devotion, with whatever his body would allow him to do. Even when he couldn't walk anymore, he would call us to his room, and he would always be sitting on his bed. So we never saw his actual condition. We would ask him, Bibhu Chaitanya, why don't you come to the temple anymore? He would just say, I can't come anymore. But we didn't know how unbelievable his condition was. So one day we came a little early, and we saw he completely bent over. He couldn't even walk straight. But up until that time, Bibhu Chaitanya every day, and this is a memory for all of us, that in whatever the condition was, he would come to Prabhupada's Samadhi Arti, even when he was bent over, not that bent over, but when he could still walk. He would come and place his hands on Prabhupada's altar so that he could stand up straight for the Samadhi altar, and never missing a single day of Mangal Artik. And everything that he did was just like that. Full, pure devotion, up to the 100%, whatever he could do, whatever his body would allow him to do. So this was the ideal example of bhakti. And now, as our bodies are also going downwards, we have the ideal example that we saw in real life, how to deal with jara, vyadi, and finally mritu. because he set the perfect example of a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, how to go through all the different stages of life, and finally, even at the last, not accepting service from anyone, just very silently, very peacefully leaving this world so that he could enter into the eternal pastimes with Srila Prabhupada. So we have to keep him in our heart, and I'm so grateful that, whose idea was it that they make a samadhi for him? Temple management. Although such a simple devotee, as we heard, never expecting any recognition of any type, they made a samadhi for him so that we can go and we can remember his example of 100% devotion, 100% dedication to the way Prabhupada wanted us to serve Krishna Balaram, Shishi Gaur Nitai, and Radhashyam Sundar. All glories to Sri Vibhu Chaitanya, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai.
So we'd like to thank Dai Shakti Mataji for such very wonderful memories of Vibhu Chaitanya to inspire us to give 100% service to Sri Sri Gaur Nitai, Krishna Balaram, Sri Sri Radhashyam Sundar. Something you want to say, Tony? There's no speaking for
So when I joined in Krishna Balaram temple, so Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu was staying in that time in room, second floor. I think room number was 107. So, and that time our temple, new bhaktas used to clean the temples. So 3 times a day we have to clean the temple. So when 7 o'clock we clean the temple, right after cleaning the temple, Prabhuji also come for is arranging the distributing Charanamrita on that Tulsi altar. So I used to help him also, bringing the pots, setting the tables. So sometimes he chastised, sometimes but that is also for teaching us how to serve the society. So he was like all the devotees, Nandana Prabhu also says he was very affectionate to me also. Always he is giving prasadam to me also. And when his his first time, he was staying in room number 5, our guest house. That time, like when the Prabhu said, his room, when he was not able to come in the temple to take darshan to the deities, so he make his room as a altar. So I brought the photos, means lamination. He asked me, do this laminate in that. So I brought all the lamination, and he himself set up the altar in the room. And every day, after when temple is closed, after Shayanarati, Gaur Krishna Prabhu used to give the garlands from the temple, and he almost maybe up to midnight he decorated his room as a temple. And sometime devotee go to visit him. Whenever Mukunda Prabhu go, so Prabhuji asking some money. So I need some money. So he gives some money sometimes. So what he does with the money, he sent to Rup Sanatan to buy some plates and glass, steel plates and glass. So whenever devotee come to visit him, he give them plates and glass. And prasadam is always a devotee, like from the pujari department, devotee giving me prasadam, so he kept some prasadam. Whoever comes there, he distributes prasadam to them. And another thing, in rainy season, we all know this rainy season, ant come to the room, no? So he almost half kilo of sugar he will put on the next to his door. All the ants come and start eating the sugar. So his roommate, there was two roommates, Rup Sanatan and another devotee was there, Sriniketan. He used to serve with me in BBT in that time. So they used to serve Prabhuji and stay with him. So Sriniketan don't like this. So finally he was not able to stay on that room. Then he left. And Rup Sanatan was there until his last time. So that was the Prabhuji's activity. And always, every day he will ask. Like sometime for some service, maybe we will not go one day. So second day when he goes, come and give darshan, Vaishnava darshan. Vaishnava darshan is the very important. He invited the devotees. The devotee also always visit him. So he is very happy with that. So when Prabhuji left his body, and that time Devamrita Prabhu was the temple president, so we decided that, okay, we will put in his Pushpa Samadhi there. So his Samadhi is there in Gausala, although his Pushpa Samadhi, but his Samadhi is there. So every year we are remembering him. So today also after 12 o'clock we will go there. 12:30 we will go there in Samadhi area in Gausala. So if you have time, please come there. We will do some bhajan kirtan and we will pray to Prabhuji to pray to the Lordship for us. Then we can serve the mission, Srila Prabhupada mission. Hare Krishna. His Grace Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samvata Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Shitanath Premanande.
So we'd like to thank His Grace Srila Thakur for wonderful memories of Vibhu Chaitanya, and his memories will conclude this portion of the memorial service.